A question for President Putin, please?
Пане президенте, чи можете ви сказати,
Do you have a
що...
question for President
Yes,
Putin?
yes.
Not Zelensky. Yeah, what would you like to ask him? Because I'm going to ask him that question.
That's the president of the United States in Ankara pointing at Volodymyr Zelensky and asking reporters if they have a question for President Putin. Everyone got confused, but Trump didn't back away. He said it again. Yeah, question not for Zelensky, for Putin. And then he turned the mistake into a promise. What would you like to ask Putin? Because I'm going to ask him that question. A minute later, Trump said, I talked to him a lot. I talked to Zelensky a little less, but the relationship is very good. Yes, in the same room, he called Iran the Islamic Republic of Japan.
An 11 missile shot by the Islamic Republic of Japan.
And before anyone starts at neurology, 2 years ago at the NATO summit in Washington, Joe Biden gestured at Zelensky and said, Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. Yeah, same two names. That's a slip. And the slip is not the story. The story is what Moscow did with it. Russian state television ran the clip like crazy, but nobody in the Kremlin laughed at Trump. Before we dig deeper, please hit that like button and subscribe, because I invite you to follow those particular phone calls and phone lines between Washington and Moscow. Let's get back to the Kremlin. Maria Zakharova, the foreign ministry spokeswoman, spent the day comparing Zelensky to a ping-pong ball. Russian television found a body language expert to explain what Zelensky's posture meant while he sat there with Trump, and how Trump was actually irritated with Zelensky. Those very special Russian experts heard it in the president's voice. Yeah, Russian television took the clip and ran it. The Kremlin took the sentence. Because those words, I'm going to ask Putin that question, that's a promise to phone Vladimir Putin. And Kremlin doesn't laugh at promises like that. So, today, Dmitry Peskov, the spokesperson of the Kremlin, was asked whether the call had happened. And he said, No, nobody called yet. Mr. Trump had apparently been very busy after all his contacts in Ankara, and President Putin, of course, is always glad to talk to President Trump. That's a very Kremlin sentence, very polite. But underneath it, one word running through every Russian wire report today. Not yet. Пока. Not yet. You don't say not yet about a call you aren't waiting for. By the way, by the time you watch this, Trump may already have called. But that doesn't matter. The question is what the call is for. Vladimir Putin doesn't need to win this war in the way Americans imagine victory. Surrender ceremony, soon, somewhere in Kyiv, a clean ending. No, he knows he cannot get that. But right now, he needs to win the phone call, and another one, and another one, and another one, while the refineries are burning in Russia and Russian petrol stations are rationing fuel. Putin is trying to win in order to get to next November, when it's freezing in Kyiv, when the lights are out, when children in winter coats will be sitting in emergency heating centers. That's the strategy, not victory, leverage. And leverage has a season. It starts in November. Understand what a Putin-Trump call actually is. It's an event, a diplomatic press release waiting to be printed. When the two of them spoke on the 4th of July, America's 250th birthday, no less, the Kremlin had its readout within an hour, before Washington had shaped anything. And in Yuri Ushakov's version, it's Trump who offers to help end the war, and Putin is the one who explains the battlefield to Trump, where Russian forces are liberating, as they call it, one city after another. That's the product. For everyone to see that Russia is not isolated, that Russia is not begging, that the President of the United States picks up the phone to call Moscow. So Peskov performed the call without the call. From the podium, he told that the White House is under delusion, заблуждается, that military pressure could produce a peace process. Escalation, he said, would only lengthen the war and widen the buffer zone. On the Patriot license, he said, we don't wear rose-tinted glasses. But Ankara was still a good day for Ukraine, let's be honest about that. A license to co-produce Patriot interceptors, American purchases of Ukrainian drones, strikes deep inside Russia described as an escalation, but an escalation that might end the war faster. And Trump even floated the idea of going to Kiev. That's not nothing, that's a lot. But that's not missiles, that's not the interceptors that Kiev needs right now. A promise for a license, for a production. An interceptor is a physical object, and Kiev needs Patriots right now. Well, that's a licensing paperwork that can take quite some time. And listen to what Trump said when he was asked why the United States won't simply send more interceptors now. He said, we don't have many left because of Iran. So Ukraine got the door opened. It didn't get the shield it needs for the next few months. And Putin understands the difference between an announcement and a physical interceptor that is being sent right now. While Russia is under real pressure. Nearly every Russian region is reporting fuel shortages. In occupied Crimea, there's a state of emergency, and petrol sales to ordinary people have been halted. On the 6th of July, Ukrainian drones hit the Omsk refinery, Russia's largest, and it's reportedly stopped working the next day. Omsk is not across the border, it's deep inside Siberia. That's the machinery, the backbone of the Russian war economy. And it's not only oil. Russia is now paying more to recruit fewer men. Russia's own data shows that contracts are slowing. Roughly 800 to 1,000 men a day last spring, and now 20% less. While signing bonuses climb to records, and while what the regions pay recruits has more than doubled, Russia's price is rising. That doesn't mean Putin is collapsing. He is not. Putin is not the man standing in a fuel line. He's not the mother who waited for 20 hours with a baby at a petrol station. But Putin is spending money, infrastructure, men. He keeps spending because he believes there's one front where Russia can still create decisive political pressure, not the battlefield, the upcoming winter. Before the full-scale invasion, Ukraine had one of the largest power systems in Europe. Year after year, Russian strikes have cut it down. That's not a collateral damage. That's a method. They hit generator after generator and transmitter after transmitter, and then it doesn't matter that one region had surplus electricity because there was no line left to carry it to the region that's freezing. Last winter was already brutal. Apartment blocks in Kyiv without heating. More than 100,000 people in Kharkiv without heat. Millions around Ukraine in the dark. And every time a military question turns into a political question, how long can Ukraine hold? How many pictures of frozen civilians can American voters watch before peace starts to sound more attractive than justice? Putin doesn't want a ceasefire that freezes the war where it stands. It wants a freeze that freezes people. That's the motto. To create pain, wait for the call, bank the legitimacy, and resume pressure. American politics loves the deal. The deal sounds practical. It sounds like common sense. Enough ideology. Get two men in a room and make them shake hands. But not every deal ends a war. Some deals ratify the method by which the war was fought. If burning a country's power grid gets you its territory, the lesson is not that peace works. The lesson is that blackmail works. And that lesson doesn't stay in Ukraine. Beijing will study it. Tehran will study it. Many countries will study it. Yes, usually serious diplomacy is the thing that ends wars. But diplomacy under coercion is a different animal. If the call tells Putin that attacks on civilians carry consequences, that's diplomacy. If the call tells Ukraine that the suffering Putin manufactured means Ukraine has to concede, that's blackmail laundered through the language of peace. And Putin is fluent in that language. He never has to say he's turning electricity into leverage. He only has to do the same thing, winter after winter, and wait for everyone else to call him. So the pressure is running in both directions. Ukraine is squeezing Russia's fuel system. Russia is squeezing Ukraine's grid. Ukraine is trying to make Putin pay before winter. Putin is trying to survive until winter. And Trump is the variable both of them are watching. Because the license and the drones and the tolerance for deep strikes doesn't turn into actual air defense before November. Putin still believes that time is on his side. That's the call Putin wants. More calls, and more, because he knows how to negotiate for a long time. And the danger isn't that Ukraine gives up. Ukraine has survived worse, and worse than any other country can imagine. So watch the refineries, watch the drones, watch the licenses, but above all, watch that phone call. Because for Putin, the call is not the end of the war. No. The call is the part of the war. Yesterday, the line was empty. But Putin can wait. Putin can wait. He is ready to wait. The main thing for him is to survive and drag time until November. But we'll watch and we'll listen. Hit that like button, and I'll see you at the next one.